Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy the story. Remember to like and subscribe. And now the story.
The HOA that surrounds my family farmland has a low, decorative wall along the public roadway. For Christmas, they put up white Christmas lights that do not blink. My wife purchased some high-tech Christmas lights and put them up on our wall, only along the roadway, and they were also non-blinking white lights. The HOA seemed happy and we heard nothing from them about our lights. Until Christmas Eve, just as the sun went down, my wife turned on the Christmas lights and adjusted the remote controller, and to even my surprise, the light switched from simple non-blinking white lights and became multicolored: reds, blues, greens, yellows, and whites, and they were blinking. Oh, how this set the HOA off. By 9 p.m., the HOA president started calling and demanding we take down our lights and put the white lights back up. To keep the image of the road the same, he claimed. He seems to forget that we are not a member of the HOA. These calls continued every hour or half hour until after midnight, when I simply turned off the phone. Wife did put it back to all white non-blinking lights in morning on Christmas Day. But she is enjoying switching the colored blinking lights on for an hour each night. How big the fine will be for this is not yet known. But thankfully we are still not part of this HOA and not beholden to the CC&Rs or their fines. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and hope everyone has a safe, prosperous 2021. Now on to what happened on New Year's Eve. Hopefully everyone has popcorn made. Update 1. After everything that my family has been through with the neighboring HOA since 2016, my wife, and love of my life, has taken it upon herself to antagonize the HOA's board of directors. For starters, my family's farm is 1,850 acres and is along a dog-legged road. The HOA surrounds my farm, and the farm is under no obligations to join or conform to the HOA. Now, the HOA has a 4-foot-high wall along the public roadway, and these walls are painted white and have been decorated with non-flashing white lights and some no-frills garland. The HOA completely surrounds our farm. They are to our right and left, they are behind us, and all the land across the road is HOA controlled. My wife has had a lot of time due to the virus. So she studied up and ordered a large amount of high-tech Christmas lights, which she used to decorate the 6-foot-high wall on our property, only along the roadway. And she had them on as non-blinking white lights. Until on Christmas Eve, the lights she installed started blinking and changing colors. They would blink fast and then slow. The HOA president was not amused. He began calling my phone multiple times per hour from 9 p.m. until midnight, when I turned my phone off. Christmas morning, my wife returned the lights to non-blinking white lights only. Except, for about an hour each night, the light would magically change colors and flash. I was quietly informed by several residents of the HOA that a meeting was held at the president's house to deal with our lights. New Year's Eve, my wife sent the kids to visit friends and she went to work. I did not know how many lights she had. Prior to New Year's, she had lights strung on our wall facing toward the house. Now she moved everything over the wall onto the street side. Further, she added lights onto the decorative gate we have across the driveway. There was some boxes brought out and placed behind the wall. Oh, and she relocated several pieces of farm equipment right behind the wall, along with pallets, trailers, and the pickup trucks. What is she doing, I wondered. Darkness sets in. The HOA's white lights come on and my wife keeps ours off. 8 p.m. There are neighbors walking along the road, and across the road along the HOA's wall they are just waiting to see what will happen. 9 p.m. I get a call from the HOA president asking what we are doing and telling me how unsafe it is to have so many people gathered along the road. At 10 p.m. my wife has still not turned on the lights. However, at 10:15 p.m. she goes out with the ATV and stops along the wall in a couple places, and at about 10:30 p.m. the non-blinking white lights come on. Until 11:30 p.m. the lights slowly fade to black, taking about 5 minutes. As the countdown to midnight starts, the lights flash on and off. At midnight, a massive light show takes place. Now there are lights that seems to run the entire wall. Picture a wave at a sporting event, but along the road the most spectacular show takes place. She has been working for days to get all this done. Yes, there were some fireworks, but not as many as most would like. Now at the time, I was not aware that my wife had everything linked to Christmas and New Year's music which could be heard if you tuned into a particular FM station. And my wife has even added some messages praising the HOA and saying how none of this show would have been possible without the HOA's support. There was so much more. The gate to our driveway opened and closed by itself, and lights came on flashing away on the gates and archway overhead. Several trees were decorated with lights. Inflatables started popping up. Santa, his sleigh and reindeer. Frosty the Snowman, elves everywhere. Father Time appeared near the driveway. An 8-feet-high Grinch inflates facing the HOA's main entrance. And my phone started ringing. I wonder who that can be. Mr. HOA president said he was calling police to report us. Yes, he did. Now my wife is smart. She researched what she could do and what she could not do. And she stayed within the law. And she had informed law enforcement of her plans and to expect the HOA president to call. And for safety, a deputy had driven past our home several times during the evening. At about 1:45 a.m., every light she put up started flashing in so many colors. Faster and faster these lights flashed until, at 2 a.m., everything went dark. And, after 5 minutes, the non-blinking white lights slowly faded back on. And they stayed on like that until sunrise. I found out that the final message in the FM site was my wife's voice telling everyone listening to thank the HOA for this wonderful show. I love my wife and hear craziness. I so wish I had thought about doing all this. I will update if there is any reaction from the HOA, but, due to our last legal dealing, the HOA is ordered to have no contact with us. My real estate attorney will likely laugh herself silly over this. We shall see. Update 2. After my wife and I purchased a pair of motorcycles, we expected to receive a significant number of letters from the HOA's president. However, that did not happen. I was out by the main road doing some cleaning and landscaping when the vice president of the HOA stopped and apologized for everything that has happened. Turns out the president contracted COVID-19 and due to some health issues he passed away. The president had been informing the rest of the board of directors that a deal for purchase of my property was in the works. As of now, the HOA is changing and I am hopeful that all these issues are behind me. I'm a 41 male. At an inexperienced age of 25 years and a bachelor, I grew tired of living in a low-rent apartment surrounded by less than lawful individuals and decided that a mortgage at the time would be only a little more per month and would make a great investment. Oh, to go back in time and give myself a talk, because what I learned was that living in an HOA only makes you a glorified renter. At the end of the day, you own nothing. The condo I purchased was very nice. 1,300 square feet, 3 bedroom and 2 baths, vaulted ceilings, thick walls. I was pretty impressed with myself. Unfortunately, the HOA was not well managed. The board was nothing more than puppets for the management company, who might as well been the landlord. It was a large HOA, 26 buildings with 12 units each. I learned in comparison to friends that this was a good thing, as it meant assessment fees were more spread out. When I moved in, I didn't know about assessment fees and I was barely educated on the HOA fee. One of the selling points was the low HOA fee. Only $80 a month. But later I found out the developer, who was still finishing the last 4 buildings, supplemented the fee to keep it low so he could sell more units. I also didn't know that my HOA was a sub-HOA, which means it was an HOA inside an HOA, so I had to pay the master HOA another $25 a month to do nothing at all. Literally nothing but the privilege of living in an HOA that was part of a collection of other HOAs. The sub-HOAs did all the internal maintenance and the city itself took care of the HOA communal areas like the public roads. Meanwhile, my sub-HOA board was full of out-of-state Southern Californians in a snow-heavy state. My first year there, they budgeted $2,000 for snow removal and $45,000 for beautification, new wood chips, and remodel the clubhouse. Meanwhile, the snow removal fee came to $35,000. At the HOA meeting to vote on how to pay the $35,000 snow fee, they banned anyone from talking about how we got into that mess, and anyone who did was arrested for disorderly conduct by the police standing by, on request of the management company. Eventually, they voted on an assessment fee which came to $350-ish for each unit. Later I learned the plow company was owned by the management company owner's relative. That plow guy came out if there was a barely visible frost on the ground and charged us $100 per push, every time he backed up and drove forward. Eventually, the HOA board was replaced and they replaced the management company with a new company. The new company liked to play with the pool keys and charge you to turn them back on. They always tried to claim your card was read at the pool during an unauthorized time, or that card you were using was a fake that they didn't issue. The 2008 recession hit without selling the last of the units. The developer backed out of supplementing the fees and the fee jumped $65 and $10 the next year. Probably even higher later, but I moved out. The developer screwed up and didn't have room to give the last building or so their 2 parking spots, one covered. So now the HOA wanted to revoke everyone's second spot. Problem: the second spot was on my mortgage and bylaws provided for a second spot. The HOA dropped the revoked spot idea, but I do not know how they eventually solved it. Last, I overpaid my HOA every month for dues, placing me several hundred over as insurance against the next assessment fee. So I paid a little amount for the HOA to install a screen on my dryer vent to keep the birds out against my credit. I also paid for several upgrades inside to sell the place. Unfortunately, when I tried to sell, the recession was at its worst and I sold at a loss to get out of there and buy a house. The last insult of this HOA was to claim I never paid for the screen on my dryer vent and that I owed a few hundred in back HOA fees. If I didn't pay, they would place a lien on me, which would mess with the condo I sold and the house I was buying. So I paid the ransom and walked away from that dumpster fire. The good news is the house I bought was no HOA and has tripled in value. I do know the master HOA was eventually sued by all the sub-HOAs and dissolved because they did nothing but rent an office down the street. I've also ran into people who still own in my old sub-HOA, and yes, the fee is now much higher. My wife and I bought a house in an HOA back in May of 2020. We bought it from family and was told the HOA is very relaxed, to say the least. Basically, pay your dues and submit the proper documentation when doing major changes to the house, landscaping. We received the rules and regulations when we bought the house, and it was very generic, nothing in it mentioning security cameras and motion lights. Well, this past Monday, my father-in-law and I finally installed 2 security cameras and lights. Had to run new electric lines due to the house not coming with a doorbell. Tuesday afternoon, we received a warning about modifications to the house without prior approval. We already had 4 motion sensor lights up months prior to installing the camera. I figured they just want a statement or something similar to explain why we put up the new system. I submit the statement, and don't hear anything back for a couple of days. The response I finally got was that the cameras needed to be removed, paperwork submitted, then they can be reinstalled. After spending 6 hours running wire and installing the system, I'm not pulling it down, and will not be changing anything until I get a response to my submission. If it wasn't mentioned in the rules and regulations, I figure they really don't have a leg to stand on in general. To summarize, we have 4 motion sensor lights and 2 cameras.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.